Okay, here we are. Firearms Study Guide. Section 1, Key Definitions and Terminology. 00 Buckshot. Standard 12 gauge shotgun ammunition loaded with approximately 9 lead pellets, .33 caliber each, designed for close range, stopping power, and high risk tactical situations. Action. The functional mechanical mechanism of a firearm that loads, locks, extracts, and ejects cartridges or shells. Barricade position. A tactical shooting position established behind protective cover to engage threats while minimizing exposure of the body. Birdshot. Shotgun ammunition loaded with numerous small lead or steel pellets, primarily used for training, target practice, or pest control. Lacking sufficient penetration for defensive encounters. Breath control. The technique of controlling one's breath cycle while aiming to minimize physical movement of the firearm, typically firing during the natural respiratory pause. Bullet. The portion of a handgun or rifle cartridge that acts as the projectile released through the barrel when the weapon is discharged. Caliber. A measurement used to identify cartridge and projectile sizes determined by measuring the inside diameter of the barrel bore. Example, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP. Case or casing. The metallic, brass, steel, aluminum, or plastic container that holds all components of a round of ammunition together, the primer, the powder, and the bullet, or the projectile. Concealment. Any object or barrier that creates a visual barrier hiding an officer from a threat's sight, but does not stop or deflect bullet penetration. Example, bushes, interior doors, or thin drywall. Cover. Any physical object or obstacle that creates a bullet-resistant barrier capable of stopping projectiles and protecting an officer from hostile fire. Example, an engine block or a concrete wall. Crimp. The folded or pinched edge of a cartridge case or shotgun shell casing that holds the bullet or wad securely in place. Deadly force. Force that is likely to cause death or great bodily harm, including firing a firearm in the direction of a person or vehicle. Florida State Statutes, Section 776.06. Double action only. A firearm trigger mechanism where every pull of the trigger both cocks and releases the hammer or striker to discharge the weapon. Double feed in a handgun. A mechanical malfunction where a spent cartridge case or unfired round fails to extract or eject from the chamber and becomes jammed against a second round feeding from the magazine. Double feed in a shotgun. A shotgun malfunction where two shells exit the magazine tube onto the elevator or / shell carrier simultaneously, jamming the shell lifter mechanism. Double or single action. A firearm operational mode where the first trigger pull cocks and drops the hammer, which is double action, and subsequent shots automatically cock the hammer so the trigger only releases it. Single action. Duty life. The recommended period of time that ammunition can be actively loaded and carried in an operational firearm under field conditions while maintaining total reliability. Failure to eject, otherwise known as a stovepipe. It's a malfunction where a fired cartridge case fails to completely exit the ejection port and becomes caught vertically or horizontally between the slide and burial chamber. Failure to extract. A malfunction where the spent cartridge casing remains fully or partially seated in the chamber after firing while a new round attempts to feed from the magazine. Failure to feed. A malfunction where the firearm fails to move a top cartridge from the magazine into the chamber upon cycling the slide. Failure to fire. A condition where the trigger is pressed and the hammer or striker fails, but the round fails to detonate due to a dead primer, engaged safety, or unseated magazine. Follow through. The continuous application of marksmanship fundamentals: sight alignment, sight picture, grip, trigger control before, during, and immediately after the weapon discharges. Frozen cylinder. A revolver malfunction where the cylinder fails to rotate due to dirt, unburned powder residue under the extractor star, or a loose ejector rod. Gauge. A measurement of shotgun bores derived from the number of bore-sized lead spears required to equal 1 pound. Example, 12 gauge. Handgun. A compact firearm designed to be held and operated with 1 or 2 hands, specifically referring to semi-automatic pistols and revolvers. Head stamp. Markings stamped onto the base or head of an ammunition casting that identify the caliber or gauge and manufacturer. Malfunction. Any condition or mechanical breakdown that prevents a firearm from operating properly or cycling through its sequence of operation. Point shooting. Hold on. Lights went on me. Point shooting. An instinctive shooting technique used at close ranges or low light when alignment of sights is not possible, using the weapon as an extension of the arm to point at the target. Powder. The chemical propellant housed inside an ammunition casing that generates high pressure, rapidly expanding gases when ignited to launch the projectile. Primer. The small metal cup containing a sensitive chemical explosive mixture seated at the base of the cartridge casing that ignites the main powder charge when struck by the firing pin. Respiratory pause. The natural brief pause in the human breathing cycle occurring right after exhalation, providing optimal physical stability for pressing the trigger. Rifled slug. A single heavy lead projectile designed for shotguns, featuring external spiral grooves to stabilize the projectile during flight through smooth bore barrels. Rim. The protruding edge or ridge on the base of a cartridge case that stops forward motion into the chamber and provides a lip for the extractor to hook onto. Round. A complete single unit of ammunition containing all necessary components, including casing, primer, powder, charge, and projectile/bullet. Safety check. The process of pulling the slide back to the locked position to visually and physically inspect the chamber, magazine well, and barrel to verify a firearm is completely unloaded. Shelf life. The length of time ammunition can be stored under ideal climate-controlled storage conditions before its reliability begins to degrade. Shooting hand, or primary hand. The dominant hand used by the shooter to grip the weapon, control the frame, and operate the trigger. Shot. Multiple spherical lead or steel pellets loaded inside a shotgun shell designed to disperse in a pattern upon firing. Sight alignment. The precise physical relationship between the front sight, rear sight, and the shooter's dominant eye, where the top of the front sight is level with the rear sight, top edge, and center. Sight picture. The visual relationship between the shooter's dominant eye, aligned front and rear sights, and the target area. Single action. Single action. A firearm mechanism where pressing the trigger performs a single operation, releasing the precock hammer or striker to discharge the round. Squib load. A dangerous malfunction where a round detonates with insufficient power, pop instead of bang, causing the bullet to become lodged inside the barrel bore. Stacked feed. A magazine design configuration where rounds are arranged in a staggered or direct single/double column for feeding into the action. Stance. The physical posture and foot positioning assumed by a shooter to provide physical stability, balance, and recoil management while engaging targets. Support hand. The non-dominant hand that assists the primary shooting hand in establishing a firm two-handed grip, controlling recoil, and operating weapon controls. Tactical reload. A procedure performed during a lull in engagement behind cover to replace a partially expanded magazine with a fully loaded magazine, preserving the full mag. Trigger control. The smooth, continuous physical press of the trigger straight to the rear with steady pressure without disturbing sight alignment or muzzle position. Wad. A plastic or fiber disc/cup inside a shotgun shell that separates the powder charge from the shot, seals expanding gases, and holds the shot together in the barrel.